actually finally happening. There has been some drone testing that we've been doing, and finally we've got all the technological bits sorted out, and that would have been Graham, the head honcho of Wild Earth, as well as Eugene and Peter and Alex. We've got some tech wizards on our team, and they've managed to somehow miraculously be able to link a live stream from this drone, and it's flying up above the quarantine clearings. Now it's a place that a lot of you would have heard about and seen us drive through but never got a bird's eye view of, and it's going to happen for the first time ever on Safari Live. I wish I was going to be able to see this with you, but enjoy. It's just going to be a short glimpse of what it looks like from the air, and then you're going to come back to us with the leopards. Enjoy, and I can't believe it's finally happening. Well, isn't that fantastic? And just a short little glimpse of quarantine from the air, and it's going to be so much fun fine-tuning that drone and its capabilities and showing you a lot more of Djuma and Arathusa from the air. It's such a wonderful addition to the toys that we have out here, and I'm sure a lot of you are ecstatic to be able to get a better idea of the expanse of this area, and also simply what it looks like from the air. So certainly a lot more exciting shots will be coming from that drone, and so happy to hear that they've managed to make it all work. There are, like I said, some real geniuses amongst our team, and we are so lucky to have them on board. A lot of them you don't get to see and interact with as much as we do, as much as you do with us, and it's important to remember that there's a lot of staff behind the scenes here that are going incredible distances to make some incredible technological feats in order to get these live safaris out to you. So isn't that awesome stuff? And who knows what the next toy will be on the Safari Live experience. I think you've come back at a good stage. It's been a while since the last copulation, and I think that Kwatile will probably get up soon and seduce Tingana once more. Just want to give the guys a quick update that they have not moved since Aubrey left me. There have been no further squirrel alarm calls or any sign of Karula approaching, but it's still a likely possibility. Interestingly enough, the first time I ever saw Kwatile was mating with Mvula around Twin Dams, and Karula was trailing a few hundred meters behind her. Now you've got some great idea of the size difference between these two animals, and we got a question through a little bit earlier. I think it was from Kathy, and she would like to know how much do these leopards weigh. And Tingana probably weighs anywhere from 80 to 90 kilograms, possibly close to 100, but anywhere from 80 to 100 kilograms would be a likely guess as to how much he weighs, and she probably weighs around 50 to 60 kilograms. The weight of each individual leopard will vary greatly, and also the area in which you find them in. Certain areas in Africa have got very small leopards where an adult female may weigh as little as 25 or 30 kilograms. And the males could also be smaller in those areas, around 70 or 80. I think some of the biggest leopards ever recorded are in the 100 plus kilogram mark. I've never actually seen a leopard being weighed before, a leopard that I know, so I've got nothing to really go on other than what the textbooks say. And Gloria asked another question, also interested to know how much, or so rather how old are these leopards. And Tingana is 9 years old. He was born in June 2006. And Kwatile, who you're looking at now, was born a year later in 2007, so she's 8 years old. And sadly, I don't have too much information on her. So if any of you do know anything more interesting about her, her previous litters, how many cubs she may have raised, we would really appreciate that info. So feel free to send it through, and we can share everyone's knowledge on these live safaris. And that's the great thing, it doesn't matter where in the world you are sitting or what time it is. We are all in this together, and a lot of the time you guys help us greatly with providing us with lots of useful information on these animals. So another question, and thanks so much for everyone who is interacting with us. If you would also like to join in the interactions, it's extremely easy. All you have to do is hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email to questions@wildearth.tv. The next one is from Mars in Arizona, and they would like to know if there have been any further updates on the Anderson male leopard, and why he's important and relative to this sighting is that the Anderson male has pushed this male leopard, Tingana, further east onto Djuma, and the Anderson male is slightly younger, a year younger than Tingana. He's also quite big and bold, and it appears like they have come to an ultimatum and settled on a territory for the time being. And the Anderson male touches just into Arethusa, up to the Arethusa Dam, and further east of there is more Tingana's territory, and Tingana's pushed much further east now into Djuma, and he goes almost to our eastern boundary, but I think Mvula still has a little bit of Djuma on his turf. So Mvula is the other male leopard that used to be dominant here before this ripple effect of leopards moving to the east due to mainly the Anderson male, who's quite a force to be reckoned with. And there haven't been any sightings that I know of recently of the Anderson male on Arethusa, but I'm sure there have been plenty of sightings of him to the lodges to the west of Arethusa, Elephant Plains, Londolozi and Singita. So they've got very, very large territories that encompass often many traversing areas, but haven't had any further sightings of him. The last time I saw Mars was when he was actually still debating and having an argument with Tingana, and that was close to Arethusa camp, probably 2 or 3 months ago, and they were growling at one another. No serious interactions, they were just debating and discussing how they're going to work around this territory problem. But all the leopards seem to, I think, have for now settled on an agreement, but I haven't seen Mvula for quite a while, and neither the Anderson male, so it's Tingana now that is going to be the dominant male that we see the most of. And Paul, like I've just said, is well, sorry, Paul. Paul's interested to know about Mvula, the male leopard we've just discussed. And like I just said, I haven't personally seen him, but I have heard of a few sightings of him on Torchwood to the east of us. He's still in good health, and I don't think there's anything to worry about, but sadly we are going to see him a lot less frequently than we used to. But that could change in time, and who knows, maybe he has been slinking through Djuma simply without us knowing about it. Is she thinking about me? Yes, she is. Get ready for action. Well, that's a love-hate relationship if I've ever seen one. He snarled in disgust after that copulation. What have you got yourself into here, Tingana? You cannot keep up. I want to see if I don't move forward a meter or two, if we can't see her wound a little bit better. And while we do reposition, I can answer another question that just come through from Tamara. Morning, and good to have you with us. It's not really going to work. She has changed positions now, but Tamara would like to know, how long is this going to continue for, and how many copulations will there be? Well, on average, Tamara, leopards mating and lions mating could take anywhere between 3 to 5 days, with copulations on average every 20 minutes. So if we do a quick calculation, that's 3 copulations an hour, 24 hours in a day, which gives us 72. 3 to 5 days gives us 210 to about 350 copulations. So a seriously large amount, and we've been lucky enough to see probably 10 yesterday and another 5 or 6 or 7 already today, and we will continue to stay with these leopards for as long as they continue to provide us this awesome action. Sadly, we cannot get into a better position than where we are now, but she is tending to this wound. We're not sure what exactly caused it. I don't think it's anything too serious though, but interestingly enough, all this licking she's doing with her very rough tongue has removed quite a lot of the hair. I think Steph's just trying to get a hold of me again, so give me a second please. Go ahead. Have you crossed through it yet, coming from the dam? Okay, copy, perfect. You should get my audio. I'm just going to start up. But basically, what's happening is that Stefan and the drone team have come quite close by, and they're going to get the drone up into the air. And I think what we should do maybe is try and film the drone as it gets above us. It's going to be coming from behind, and once you've got some shots of the drone, Nikki in the final control room will probably cut across to the view that they're getting from the air, and it'll give you a good idea of how thick it is in this area and exactly where we are. They might keep the drone quite high because they don't want to interfere with what's going on, but I can hear it, so VM's going to swivel around and see if he can find it for you. You got it there, VM?
Yeah.
It's just below the, if you swivel around then I'll show you. There might be the antenna a little bit in the way, but we'll be able to get to it.
Yeah, we'll just give it a second to get close.
Okay, cool. And this is so exciting. It is trial and error, and we are going to be very sensitive to the animals. We don't want to alert them or frustrate them in any way, and we're not too sure how they are going to respond to it. So the guys are just going to keep the drone nice and high, and we'll see how it all works out. So this is a trial and a test, and hopefully shortly you will be able to get a visual of the drone. I can see it right above us. I don't know if VM's going to be able to get the camera there, but he can possibly try. There is a little dot you can see up there. Tiny little dot. And isn't this awesome? Okay, well, they've just started a possible mother copulation, so maybe let's just wait a few seconds until they finish that. And isn't it wonderful that the drone is having absolutely no effect on what they are doing? Absolutely incredible. Awesome. I looked up kind of curiously at it, probably wondering what this funny bird is and why it's making a sound like a bumblebee. Okay, and now we're going to send you up into the sky. Well, isn't that incredible, everyone? I'm so happy you got to see an idea of how thick it is here. Okay, now we've got a very, very good view of these wounds. And initially I hadn't noticed the wound further back behind her shoulder. There's one in the crease of her shoulder and one further back. And that looks like it could very well be the width of an impala or an Inyala's horns. And maybe she was impaled as she tried to catch one. That would be a plausible guess for me. Some of the antelope will put up a fight even against leopard. Impala not really likely, but Inyala and bushbuck are known to be quite aggressive at times, and if they've got no other option other than to fight a leopard that's latched onto them, some of them may try. So who knows, maybe it was that. A warthog is another animal that can deliver potentially fatal injuries to a leopard with their very sharp tusks. And I wish I could see the view that you guys got from above us, but I'm sure a lot of you enjoyed it. You'll be happy to know that even though the drone was directly above us, the leopards still were happy to mate. And rather than testing the boundaries too much and scaring them off, the drone just stayed nice and high, and it makes a sound very similar to a swarm of bees flying past. And the leopards have got naturally no concern for a swarm of bees, and that's why we were fortunate enough to not disturb them, and that's a great sign for future drone leopard sightings. And well done to whoever was piloting it this morning. I'm not sure who was lucky enough to be on the controls. VM says it was Andrew's turn, so it was Andrew on camera, I believe. And basically, just to let you know a little bit about how the drone works, is that it's controlled much like a remote control car, with a little control set with 2 toggles, and above that control set there's a large screen that you can actually see the direct feed being filmed from the camera, so they know exactly what they're looking at as they fly around. And it's incredible technology. The drone can also tell you exactly how much battery life's left and how much longer you can stay up in the air for. It's also got the ability to come back to a set home point, so just before they would have taken off, they would have registered on the drone's GPS a spot that in case of emergency and power runs out or there's a default that goes wrong on the drone, it knows automatically how to return safely back to its departure point. So remarkable technology. Still a tricky tool to fly, and it's a windy day out this morning, so Andrew would have had his work cut out for him. But isn't he lucky to debut his drone career here on Safari Live with an aerial shot of mating leopards. Well, my radio is not working this morning, but at least I can hear the final control room. So they're in comms with me, but I've got no comms with them. Well, some interest as to why this mating is so aggressive has just come through from Carol and Anna Marie, and they would like to know why is it so aggressive, and has or will the male's neck biting ever perforate the skin or puncture the leopardess's neck. And the reason why it's such an aggressive affair is because of their barbed penis. The male has a barbed penis, so it's a painful affair for both of them. And the reason why cats have this barbed penis is to help induce ovulation. So it's an interesting evolutionary adaptation that I'm not too sure why exactly they've worked it out to be like that. That is the science behind it. And I've never seen a male leopard damage a female leopard's neck as he bites onto it while they're mating. I'm sure it's a little bit painful, but it wouldn't make sense if he created a lot of damage or injury to any female that he was mating with. It would be counterproductive, and I think it's more of a gentle nibble, as are their flaying paws as they dismount one another. They may actually connect one another with those flying paws, but you'll probably find their intentions are not to injure or disable their partner, but merely to let out their frustration and anger from the pain caused by the mating. Now this is a good question, and it's been sent through from Gail. She's wondering if it's normal for female leopards to move out of their territory whilst mating. And yes, Gail, it does happen fairly often, and the reason behind that is that male leopards have got very large territories. So Tingana may have 3 or 4 or 5 females within his acquired territory, and his territory is much bigger than our territory, so he can move through a lot more parts of the reserve than we can. So where he moves will probably encompass, or almost certainly encompass, Kwatile's territory to the south of us on properties called Hoffman's and Shirley's, and those areas we cannot go to, and that's why we don't see Kwatile at all unless she needs to seek him out for mating. So she's obviously ready to mate now. She can't wait on her much smaller territory for him to come back, because she had no idea when he would be passing back through both his territory and hers. So she came out in search of him, and she'll be able to hear his vocalizations, hear his scent marks, and be able to get to him when it suits her. So she was obviously ready for mating now and couldn't wait any longer, and that's what's caused her to move into another female leopard's territory, staying within her dominant males though. What she might do after this though is go off and join up with another male who may have a territory that overlaps her territory, and that would probably be the Anderson male. So there's a chance that she would even mate with him, and that way it increases her cub's likelihood of survival, because therefore Anderson and Tingana will both think that they are the biological father, but only one of them in all likelihood will be. You can hear the tree squirrel ringing out behind us again. I wonder what it can see back there. I wonder if Karula's just resting, keeping an ear on the scenario here. And I covered most of William's question when answering the last one, and he was interested to know what will happen once the copulations have finally finished here. And he will continue with business as normal, and she will probably start heading straight back into a safe area, being her home territory. So I'm guessing she's going to head straight south, and who knows, it may turn out that his territory patrolling may lead them both there as the mating comes to an end, and therefore she can almost have been escorted through all this foreign territory by him. Or it could be that she has to run the gauntlets and make her way alone through the territories of Karula and Shadow. Where we are now, I've never seen Shadow. This is the heart of Karula's territory, but Kwatile does also fringe territories with Shadow, close to the southern edge of Arethusa, the Arethusa airstrip. And that's just for now. I mean, territories are an ever-evolving and changing thing, just like we've discussed how the male leopard's territories have changed drastically in the year that we've been here. This used to be Mvula's home, now it is Tingana's, and Mvula's headed further east and north. And the same thing actually happened with Shadow and her cub. Because Tingana moved east due to pressure from the Anderson male, so too did Shadow and her cub. And the reason why Shadow and her cub did that was a very clever move on Shadow's behalf, because she knows that the Anderson male would kill Sindira if he got a hold of him, and that's why she followed her dominant male and stayed in the core of his turf, which has brought her onto Djuma. So that's why we've been seeing her a lot more, and it also means Karula has been slightly pushed out of her own territory by one of her daughters. Well, for now all seems peaceful and quiet here with the leopards. It will in all likelihood change at some stage, and as soon as Kwatile decides she's ready for the next round of mating, we'll be sure to rush you back here.
Welcome back, and we are currently sitting in the drainage line on Gowrie cut line, probably about maybe 300 meters from where Scott is with Kwatile and Tingana that are mating just here. Now I heard reports that Karula had come into this drainage line and disappeared, and as you can imagine, I think that this might have put her nose slightly out of joint. There's another female right in the heart of her territory, mating with a leopard that she also regularly mates with. So I imagine she's feeling a little bit put out. Apparently she was calling at one point and then did her usual Karula thing, which was disappear off into a drainage line, duck down somewhere in these bushes and lose all of the guides who are trying to find her. We're back in here. We're going to do a slow bumble through. I'm listening very carefully for alarm calls as well. Now it would be interesting to see what would happen if Karula was to encounter this mating pair. Now, as many of you will know, female leopards are territorial. They're not territorial towards the males, but they are very territorial towards the females. And Kwatile is not in any way closely related to Karula, so it's not one of her close daughters. So at that point, it becomes a little bit more contentious. However, I think that Karula would think twice before approaching the mating pair, because Tingana, as all males will do when they're mating with a female, will probably be very, very protective of her. I'm just looking very carefully around in trees. I thought I caught a whiff of stomach contents of a carcass, but I think that might have been wishful thinking on my part. And we're just going to do some slow loops. Just in case you were wondering what happened with the Ellies, they moved south into that thick drainage line around Nyala Road South and Nyala Road North and disappeared off in there, so we left them be. I wasn't going to follow them and try and crash through the bushes after such a nice, relaxed breeding herd. I'm sort of wondering, or trying to put myself in the mind of Karula, which I've discovered in the past is very, very tricky to do. And I was wondering if maybe she might sort of head close towards the mating pair and then just observe from a safe distance. Woo! We're not going to be going that way. We're quite significantly blocked off there. See if we can sneak around the side. Keep your eyes peeled for spots in the grass or spots in the trees. While I've been down here, I've seen at least 4 or 5 leopard-looking branches right in the Tambesi thicket of this drainage line. I wonder where she's hiding and what she's thinking. I would seriously doubt that she's too impressed with their presence. I think I've been fooled once again into thinking that a bush was a leopard. Now Karuna, if she was calling, there's also a chance that she's moving through and scent marking. It's the same thing that we've seen, or similar to what we've seen the Birmingham boys do when they come in here, and the other male lions. And Charlotte was wondering how it all works. How many times is there a limit? Charlotte, it is in the case.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry that you were rushed hastily back to us, but it appears Jamie went through a low signal area. Nothing here has changed, but it is good to have you back on the vehicle. I'm wondering what these guys are going to get up to. Probably not too much for the rest of the day. Tingana's looking a lot more comfortable than he was yesterday afternoon. I'm almost convinced that they didn't manage to make a kill sometime between when Jamie saw them 3 days ago and to when we found them yesterday afternoon. He was full-bellied, she looked very hungry, so what may have happened is during the mating they may have got lucky and stumbled across a potential prey item, snuffled that up, and he probably ate the whole thing, leaving nothing for her. They don't share leopards unless there's lots of meat, and if it was something small he would have taken it all for himself. So not very good manners from Tingana, but it is the way of the wild. And on the topic of mating leopards and hunting, usually they will not hunt during that 3 to 5 day process. They're not going to be readily looking for meals, although if an easy opportunity passes by they will no doubtedly take that easy opportunity, and that's a trait of all predators regardless of how full they are or what their actual intentions are. If an easy meal comes by they'll do their best to try and catch it. And I guess the reason why they're not hunting or focused on hunting whilst they are mating is they're making so much noise in the process, and it's quite a tiring business that any potential prey would probably hear them before they get the opportunity to catch them. And like I said, it's also a tiring business, so they've got all their energy and concentration focused on getting the next generation to us. And who knows, maybe we'll be lucky enough to see the prodigy of this mating in 3 months time. Roughly 90 to 110 days is the gestation period of a leopard. But like I say, Kwatile is probably going to head further south into her core territory where we will not see her. But in years to come, those cubs could come on to Djuma, who knows, and it's going to be interesting to follow the updates on Kwatile. Even if we don't get to see her necessarily, the great news is that other guides will, and I'm sure on Kwatile's Facebook page there will be updates in 3 months' time with some new furry little cubs. So that's something to look forward to. Just, pricked up her ears a little bit, and I don't know if she's going to think about mating again. No, she looks to be very comfortable and relaxed there, as does he. We're going to have our work cut out for us this afternoon. I'm fairly certain they won't necessarily move too far during the course of the day, although it is cool conditions, so favourable for predators to move in. Usually when it's very hot they will not move too much during the day. But even if they move a short distance in this very thick bush, it may take us some time to find them again, but I'm already looking forward to that challenge. And VM and I got off to such an exciting morning. We were probably only 500 meters away from camp when we found their first tracks. Drove past the Gallagher waterhole and we stopped there. I was out the vehicle checking for tracks and VM was standing by listening very carefully for any audio, and we both heard their first audio clearly. Moved into that area, drove about a few hundred meters to get us closer by, heard the audio again, repositioned the vehicle into that area, and VM did a great job spotting Kwatile lying up on a riverbank, which is where you got to see her for the first time, or rather she had just crossed down from up on the riverbank down into that thick riverbed where we saw them mating earlier. Oh, she's been doing some awesome fly hunting both yesterday and today, and she's at it again. Look at how long those whiskers are. She's got very distinctive notches in her left ear, so that's a good characteristic to look for when identifying or trying to identify this leopard opposed to the other females we get. Shadow and Kwatile have ears that are not nearly as tattered and torn as Kwatile. And Tingana for now is also in good nick. That'll probably change over the years, and as he gets older he's going to start looking a lot more battle scarred. I guess kind of like how Mvula's looking now. Mvula's a little bit more battered around the edges. And we're so fortunate to be able to show you an array of different sized leopards and shaped leopards. They all have their own individual and unique look. I think this female Kwatile is absolutely beautiful. What's also nice is to see the youngsters like Sindile, Shadow's 1-year-old male cub, and how flawless he looks. Well, there's going to be another exciting view from the sky shortly, and I'm told the drone team has now got into an area where there was a herd of elephants and would like to show you a bird's eye view of that. There's going to be no audio, sadly, so that's one thing that we have to work our way around technically. So there'll be no audio while you're watching this clip, but you're going to get spoiled with some wonderful aerial images. Enjoy, and we'll see you a bit later. Welcome back, everyone, and I'm sure a lot of you are ecstatic with the new views you are getting. I'm told you could see the elephants quite clearly moving off through the bush, and importantly, our goal here is to have minimal impact on what the animals are doing. Of course, if we were to fly the drone any lower over certain animals, it would possibly terrify them. It's a very foreign object, so we're going to be as subtle and inobtrusive as possible as we begin to understand the different animals and how they react to them. But how wonderful are those high aerial views? You get a good idea of the expanse of Djuma and the Sabi Sands, this wonderful wilderness that we're in. And it's even a view for all of us who know the area, have never seen before really. When we fly in planes or over in planes, it's so quick that you don't get to absorb all the information and all the interesting stuff that you can see from the air. So I'm so elated that finally we have got this new view for all of you. It gives you a good idea of the perspective, the size of this area, and how lucky we are to be exploring it. Nothing's changed with the leopards. But I'm guessing that could change. And Pretty Nightmares just sent through her comments, and she was interested to see how far the herd of elephants were spread out as they were feeding through the bush, and also she mentioned that they looked like tiny little ants, and I guess that emphasizes just how cautious the drone crew are being. They do not want to scare any animals, and a lot of the views you will be getting will just be giving you a general perspective or idea of what the vegetation or terrain is like that the animals are moving through, and we'll get you the closer, better views from the vehicle, but we certainly won't be able to compete with the vistas and the sense of space that you'll be able to see from up in the drone. It'll be wonderful to know where exactly Karula is now. I mentioned earlier that she was seen probably about a quarter of a mile away from us here, and she was heading in the general direction, and it sounds like she's been following the trail, probably the scent trail and the audio trail being left behind by these two leopards. I've actually never once seen female leopards interacting with one another, and the only time I've seen males interacting was a sighting of this male here and one of his main competition, the Anderson male, who we've discussed has pushed Tingana in an easterly direction onto our property. And I really would love to be able to see some more kind of aggressive sightings and be able to share those with you in the coming months. We will get lucky finally, but it's important to remember that in 4.5 years of working in the Sabi Sands, which is a leopard-rich area, it's one of the best places to view leopard in Africa, even after all that time, I still haven't seen interactions of an aggressive nature between either females or males. The one sighting that I did have of Anderson and Tingana, when we got there, everything was quite subdued, and all that was really happening was that Tingana was letting off a very deep, low, rumbling growl, and the Anderson male was lying off about 20 meters away, just keeping an eye on him. But what they do when they are interacting is that usually it won't be physical, it'll be a lot of vocal and visual demonstrations of how big and strong they are. So they'll pace up and down next to one another, vocalizing, taking turns to vocalize, almost having a shouting argument and sizing one another up. Eventually it can come to blows, but as far as I'm aware, Tingana did not have blows with Anderson or Mvula when all this displacement was happening, but sometimes visual and audio confrontations are not enough to solve a problem, and that's when you get to see the physical battle. So it's a rarity, but one day we might be able to see some intense action unfolding between either females who rival territory with one another or the dominant males. Tingana seems to have his tail kind of latched onto a little branch that's sitting quite interestingly here, perched up on a little twig. It's a go-away bird that you can hear calling. It's not its regular quang call, but it's one of the other melodies that it can sing out. There's also a few francolin calling in the distance. But I tend to find in windy and overcast conditions the birds don't seem to be as joyful and vocal as they are when it's bright sunshine. Well, the good news is Jamie has managed to find some better signal where she is, so she would like to call you guys back onto her vehicle, and while the leopards are asleep, I think that's a great option. Like I said before, as soon as anything starts to stir here, we'll be sure to rush you back.
Welcome back, and at least we discovered the limits of the black hole that is that drainage line. We got fairly far in before our signal disappeared and we had to loop back out again. Still no sign of Karula, and what I've done to try and follow up is I've looped north. I've driven a bit of the Buffelshoek cut line. We're back on Hyena Road, and I'm here for two reasons. One, the lions were here yesterday. Two, this is directly in the direction that Karula was last seen walking in, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed in that respect. But what I really wanted to see as I travelled along Buffelshoek cut line was to check whether or not the reason behind the Birmingham's boys' move to the south was because of the presence of the Salati males. So I went to go and check and see if I could see any tracks coming across south from Buffelshoek cut line. I didn't pick up any, but I'm still looking around for where Karula has disappeared to. There is of course a chance that the Birmingham boys just went south for other reasons. It might not be in any way connected to the presence of the Salati males. It's just something that we've been wondering about. Now as they move through, they're going to be spraying their territory, both the Salati males and the Birmingham boys, and that's a way of marking. Now just before I lost my signal in the drainage line, I know that I was in the middle of answering Charlotte's question about scent marking and whether or not they have a different organ. And in case of big cats, it is just their bladder. They have a nice big bladder which they can store urine in, and then they spray it backwards. But like any resource in that respect, it is finite, so they have to keep topping it up. Fortunately, they are very well adapted, even though they will drink once a day if there is water available, and they are fairly water dependent. They are quite well adapted, and they've got very effective kidneys as a way of preserving extra water. But they can spray very small but very highly concentrated amounts out, and that coats the guarri bushes and actually maintains that scent for a very, very long time. For other or a mongoose, anything along those lines, marking territory is slightly different, and in those cases they use an anal gland. It's entirely specially dedicated to produce like oily substance that they create, that is then placed on either grass or leaves around the area that they're trying to mark. But in just the same way, that also needs to be constantly refreshed and replenished to keep that scent nice and pungent, and it is certainly very, very pungent. with the presence of the Birmingham boys in this area and with that one lone Nkuhuma lioness, approach broke. You were wondering if there's sorry moment as we went through a bit of a shaky signal patch. But I was talking about John's question as to whether there's any update about Junior or the rest of the Nkuhuma pride. And John, to the best of my knowledge, no. We do have everybody updated about what's happening. Last we knew, the second of the females had broken or had crossed across into Buffelshoek, and Junior was hanging out with one lioness, one of the remaining sub-adults, and then off by himself. So it was the three that was moving around. We're keeping our fingers crossed, of course, that they are safe and sound somewhere. It would definitely be in Junior's best interest to make himself fairly scarce from this area. Now we have definitely confirmed that the lioness with the Birmingham boys is one of the Nkuhuma lionesses. I had a look at a couple of pictures last night and it is one of them. So we can say that for certain. Where the rest of her pride is, I'm not too sure. Hopefully at the end of this false estrus cycle, if she's convinced the Birmingham boys to mate with her and accept them, then she'll head back and locate or rejoin her pride. But I promise you, as soon as we get any kind of update in that regard, we will let you know. Still no sign of Karula around here. I was hoping that alarm calls might give her away, but sorry, just listen for one moment. I thought I heard a yes. Can you go away birds calling? They're quite far to the east of us, but I wouldn't put it past her, especially if she's decided that she doesn't want to hang around this mating pair. I wouldn't put it past her to cover that distance in the time that we've been away from her, or in the time that she was last seen. And I think let's head across there and see what they're shouting at. Hopefully they keep shouting. The one thing I have noticed about Karula though, she somehow avoids alerting some of the sort of typical animals that might give her away. She ducks away from go-away birds, she ducks away from the squirrels. Somehow she manages to be very low profile if she wants to be. That's very pretty. I'm just looking at this flowering acacia. Not sure if you can get it from there, Jean-Grey. Do you think you can? Shall I shift a little bit closer? A nice splash of colour in a gloomy day. And that's the first time I've seen one of the acacias flowering around here. I'm just going to look through my binoculars, since I am monitorless, at which tree we're looking at. And because I'm not too sure, I'm going to keep an eye on it and head back here later on my way home and just grab a sample. I want to jump out now just because it is quite far away and it'll take me a while. I don't have my Leatherman to break it off, but I think it's one of the acacias. I'm not too sure which. I'm going to go and explore, but nice to see these signs of spring on these rather gloomy days that we have. The cold front has blown in overnight. I'm sort of hoping it might clear up, but I think it might even bring some rain. And of course that is something that we can never say no to. I still want to head in the direction of those alarm calls. They did sound fairly frantic for go-away birds. And I want to see what it is that's disturbed them like that. Now while we make our way there, both Penelope and Junebug, and I'm sure many of the other viewers, will
That's leopards mating, team. Scotty D and the wildebeest on camera. Very good. That'll be a cool video.
Alive.
Huh?
Crash cut alive.
Are we? Welcome back, everyone. It appears that my comms have fallen out, so I didn't get the message that there was a crash cut to us, but welcome back. And VM and I just got another quick glimpse of them mating, and I took a video with a little camera that we have for our behind the scenes archives and footage, just to remember all the wonderful moments that we share. It's quite nice though, VM, if you don't mind shining, zooming in on the back of her neck, we can take a closer look of where he has been biting onto her during the mating. I can't tell if it's just wet fur or whether there's any blood there, but it's the most ruffled up I have ever seen a female, and whether that is a direct result of mating or possibly another older injury, I'm not too sure. I don't know this female leopard well enough, but it could well be from all the biting and snarling that's going on as they mate. I've found the source of the problem and should have contact again with the final control. And for those of you who are new to the show, it's important to explain a little bit of what goes on in the final control room. It's Nikki and Jess in there today. It's a two-man operation, or two-lady operation rather, and there's a lot of stuff going on in there, monitoring all of the signal, all of the questions you guys are sending through, deciding which vehicle to cut across to, which can be tricky at times, especially when we are getting spoilt like this morning with multiple sightings. Difficult to know exactly what to do, but that's what Jess and Nikki are up to. And Craig's just trying to get a hold of me. I just need to have a quick chat with him on the Game Drive channel. He's going to try and make his way into the sighting. Go ahead, Craig. That's affirmative. I'd suggest going possibly 100 meters east of Giraffe Dip Crossing on Central, and then I can switch on and give you a rev. Okay, so Craig is nearby, standing by. I'm just going to start up the vehicle to give him an idea of where we are. Sorry guys. Okay, so Craig managed to hear where we are, and hopefully he's going to be able to weave his way through this thick bush in his long vehicle. Now, I touched on leopards mating and their need and ability and likelihood to hunt whilst mating a little bit earlier, but there's people joining the safari and leaving the safari at multiple stages during the 3-hour adventure, and Terry in Santa Ana has obviously just joined in and is interested to know, will they eat during this 3 to 5 days of mating, or is it unlikely? And Virginia would like to know if they had have seen that male steenbuck that crouched down and lay and hid as they walked past. If they had have seen it, would they have gone for it? And yes, most certainly, Virginia, they would have taken a shot at it, but they're not actively seeking a meal. They are very focused and intent on the mating. But if any opportunities arise, they'll try their luck, as predators do. They're highly opportunistic, but they are focused on mating. Also, interestingly enough, I mentioned earlier, Terry, that the male leopard here, Tingana, looked very full-bellied yesterday afternoon. She didn't, but what may have happened is they may have got lucky, made a small kill, maybe a die kill or a steenbuck, and he probably would have consumed the whole thing, not sharing anything with her. Male leopards will have the tendency to not be gentlemen when it comes to feeding, and quite often males, even when they're not mating, may come across a female with her kill and help himself to as much of it as he likes. You've been able to see the size difference between the male and the female, and it wouldn't make sense for a female to put up a fight against a hungry male. So there is a chance that they will have a kill while they're mating, but it's very slim. In all of the times that I have seen leopard mating, only once have I seen them on a kill. So I've probably seen them mating different, or probably 20 to 30 different leopard sightings with mating, but only one of which there has been a kill. Well, I've just got a glimpse of Craig in the background, so that's good. He's got at least a view of us. Now he needs to try and work out how he's going to get a view of the leopard.
So maybe not Tingana, but Kwatile certainly would think twice about tackling a Nyala bull of this size. I'm going to try and shift backwards a little bit. He was standing nice, perfectly out in the open for the briefest moment before deciding to be a little bit camera shy and tuck himself behind a bush willow. Let's shuffle backwards, slowly. There we go. And he's nibbling away. Also enjoying the fresh new grass. There's another female and another male off to the left, but they're still tucked away behind the bush, so we'll stay with this male for now. Now, these are the sort of animal who are really, really useful when you're looking for a leopard somewhere in a block and you just don't quite know where that leopard's gone to. They're always on high alert, and they give a very distinctive bark alarm call to alert everything in the area to the presence of the leopard. But they're looking very peaceful and very relaxed, and our go-away birds have also fallen quiet. Makes me wonder if they weren't calling in response to something else. Either that, or the threat has moved away from where they are. Now, as beautiful as these Nyala are, and as peaceful as they are looking, I do want to continue on my way and see if maybe we just get lucky at Buffelshoek Dam. You never know. But we'll leave the Inyala to their breakfast and continue on. Good luck, Inyala. Watch out for the leopards. Now, Tingana and Kwatile over the last 2 drives have put in some seriously good efforts, and I know that there are many people keeping a tally up as to their mating efforts, but I'm actually keeping it as a tally point of how many times they've interrupted me mid-sentence. Now, just before we went across to Scott and caught him apparently somewhat unawares and busy practicing his filmmaking skills, I was answering a question from Penelope and Djuma. Now, you guys were wondering about Shadow's cub, Sindile, and that whole naming saga is a completely different topic of conversation, but you were wondering how he's doing, or if we have any updates about him in terms of just after, how he's recovering just after his rabies vaccine shot. And we've actually left him alone for a little bit. We haven't heard any updates from him. Now, I imagine that the presence of Kwatile and Tingana mating around Impala Plains would mean that he's moved off to a different area. But we have just left him alone to sort of hide away and lick his wounds, so to speak. I mean, it's entirely for his own good, so it's very, very positive that that happened. But I imagine he is slightly confused by all of the fuss that has happened to him over the last week or so. But it is wonderful news for him. We'll have to follow up with a booster shot in 21 days, 3 weeks from that first shot. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye on him and following up when we next hear a report of which area he's in. I think it's highly likely he's going to go to ground for a while. He must be totally bemused by this whole deal. One thing I am going to do when I get back to camp is find a pot of super glue and reattach the gear stick lever, which is rattling away. Okay, action with the leopards. Catch you later.
Welcome back, everyone, and
there's no jumping anymore, it's just rolling.
we got you back just to see the end of another copulation. It was in thick bush, and like I said earlier, it's not an easy job being in that final control room and deciding when to cut across and when not to. I'm glad you did get to see the end of that, but we have been so spoiled this morning with such great views, and apologies if any of you have just joined the show, but you do need to try and watch as much of these live safaris if you want to get in on all the good action, as it is live and we can't get the animals to stop and wait for us. They do as they please, and we are lucky enough to be with them this morning. We got lucky we found them when we did, because had we have not found them early on, as they were moving quite quickly through a lot of thick bush, it would have been a tough job in finding them. So we were very fortunate this morning, and our fortune does continue. I'm just going to reposition the vehicle ever so slightly. That's much better. I've just heard a branch break. You might hear cracking sounds. There must be some elephants nearby. We might get lucky. They just mated a few seconds ago. Tough. Population. Some of aggression varies greatly between tonight, but what we'll find is how days is tonight. Body work out is good to know.